The city was a kaleidoscope of anticipation. Inside her penthouse, Elara stood before a mirror that stretched toward the ceiling. Her gown was a masterpiece of costume art, a swirling galaxy of hand-spun glass and vintage silks that captured every flicker of light. Tonight, she wasn't just a guest. She was a co-chair of the most exclusive event in the world. The theme was the Gilded Lens, a celebration of how we see and are seen. But as she adjusted her shimmering sleeve, she felt the weight of the diamonds. They felt less like jewelry and more like an anchor. Outside the Condi M, Nast galleries, the air was electric with a different kind of energy. Malik adjusted his scarf against the biting wind, his hands steady as he gripped the wooden handle of his protest sign. He wasn't there for the fashion or the flashbulbs. He was there for the thousands of workers whose sweat had funded the gala's primary sponsor, a trillion-dollar delivery empire. To Malik, the Gilded Lens was nothing more than a filter used to blur the reality of exhaustion and empty promises. As Elara's limousine crawled through the crowded streets toward the museum, the flashbulbs began to pop like tiny stars. She looked out the tinted window, seeing the world in fragments of light and shadow. The red carpet awaited, a river of velvet leading into a sanctuary of opulence. She practiced her smile, the one the cameras expected, but her eyes kept drifting toward the barriers where the crowds were thickest. Malik found himself at the front of the barricade, the roar of the crowd rising behind him. "People over profit," they chanted, their voices a rhythmic tide against the walls of the museum. He saw the black cars arriving, sleek and silent as sharks. He knew that inside, the tables were set with crystal and the air smelled of lilies, while out here, the air tasted of cold rain and defiance. Elara stepped onto the carpet, and for a moment, the world stopped. The costume art on display was breathtaking sculptures made of fabric that defied gravity. She moved through the grand hall, greeted by fellow icons and the elite of the city. Yet, as she stood beneath the towering portraits of the exhibit, she noticed the sponsor's logo etched in silver on every wall. It was the same logo that adorned the boxes piled high in every alleyway of the city. A few blocks away, a local leader named Zev joined Malik at the front of the line. Zev had boycotted his invitation to the gala, choosing the pavement over the velvet. "They want us to look at the art so we don't look at the hands that built it," Zev said, his voice carrying over the megaphones. Malik nodded, feeling a surge of hope. They weren't just protesting a party, they were demanding a seat at the table of the future. Inside the gallery, Elara stood before a particularly striking piece, a cloak made entirely of discarded tech components and gold leaf. It was beautiful, but it felt haunting. She thought of the workers Malik was fighting for, the people who handled these components every day for pennies while the gala raised millions. Through a high, narrow window, she could hear the faint, rhythmic pulse of the chanting outside. It sounded like a heartbeat. The tension reached its peak when the gala's main benefactor arrived. The cameras turned toward him, but so did the voices of the protesters. Malik raised his sign higher, his voice joining the chorus that shook the glass doors of the museum. They were making it impossible to ignore the world outside the lens. The Gilded Lens was cracking, and the truth was spilling through. Elara walked toward the grand window overlooking Fifth Avenue. She saw the sea of people, the colorful signs, and the flicker of police lights. She saw Malik, though she didn't know his name, a young man with a sign that read, "Our lives are not your art." She realized that the most important costume art tonight wasn't the gown she was wearing, but the conviction of the people standing in the rain. As the night wore on, the gala continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Elara moved through the crowd with a new perspective, her gilded lens finally clear. Outside, Malik stayed until the last light in the museum dimmed. They were two people on opposite sides of a glass wall, but for one night, their worlds had collided. The lens had been turned, and the city would never look quite the same again. Moral of the story: being kind and helping others is more important than looking fancy or showing off wealth. True beauty comes from a caring heart.